Today, we're joined by Kimberly King, a sexual abuse prevention expert, safety educator, and author of the powerful book, I Said No, a must-read for families learning how to talk about body safety and boundaries. We'll dive into her work, the online resources she's created for parents, and the Momunity podcast she created to help prevent child sexual abuse. Kimberly, thank you so much for joining us. For anyone watching or listening who hasn't yet met you, doesn't know your story, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and, kind of your background?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. So I'm Kimberly King. I am a kindergarten teacher, mom of 3 kids, and a sexual abuse prevention educator, advocate, and author. So what I do is I help parents and teachers learn how to talk about these really tough topics with their kids so that they can empower and protect them. I got into that work just with experience with a situation that happened with my son at a sleepover. So that was kind of the motivation where it all started.
Do you mind sharing a little bit about that story and kind of how that prompted you to start what you do now?
Yeah, sure. So I was a Navy wife and had a deployed husband and had a new baby. And so my little baby was in the hospital and I had to leave my 2 older children who were 4 and 6 with neighbors. And these were neighbors that we cared about and loved and knew for a few years, and they had played with our kids before. So I felt fine doing that because I had to go back to the hospital for an issue with the baby. And while I was at the hospital, I got like a funny feeling that something was wrong. But this was, before cell phones. This was before technology. This was like a very long time ago. So I called to check, and that mom said everything was fine. And then I went about my business, spent the night at the hospital, came home. In the morning when I picked up my son, he ran out to me from the door and just said, "Mom, I had a red flag." And so, first of all, we had talked about red flags and body safety just a little bit before that. He was 4. So I had told them, listen, we don't want to have anybody touching our private parts. And if anybody tries to or asks you to touch theirs, just make sure to tell an adult, usually mommy, or if there's another mommy around, just tell, because that's not okay. It's not your fault. So just that little tiny piece of information, and he came out and told me what happened. So he said that his friend had tried to, do unsafe things and broke the safety rules. So we, again, just a little bit of rule information, and he knew to say no. What was interesting about this was that when you have kids on play dates or at sleepovers, you expect them, you assume, I guess, that the parents are going to monitor and supervise your kids the same way that you do, right. But that's not the case. So my son went at 4 years old to get help from this other mom, and she just said, "Oh, you're fine. Just go back and stop messing around." That was it. So then he created what I call the first exit plan. He decided that nobody likes throw up, so he would tell everybody he was going to throw up, and he went into the bathroom and he slept in the bathroom. Now that's not ideal,
right?
But for a 4-year-old to come up with that, with that scenario and just get out of harm's way, I thought was really brilliant. So when he told me and we learned kind of like the events of that night, I realized that I had missed the whole topic of this can happen with a friend. This can happen with people that we know. And there were no books about it at the time. So we started talking about it. We started journaling about what happened. And it actually triggered some things from my childhood too. Mm-hmm. And then long story short, we ended up writing, and it just became a book. So
love that. So that's one.
Yes.
Ooh, wow.
It's a bit. No. Oh, there's a red flag in there too.
Oh my
Look
gosh,
at that.
wait, that's amazing. I love it.
So this is a new edition. This is the 2025 edition, awesome. And it's been in publication since 2010. And I have a new publisher now. We've just redesigned the whole book. So this is basically Zach King, my son.
Oh, I love it.
It's his voice because he helped me really write it in the beginning. So there's some kid-friendly language, and it's him telling the story, not an adult. So kids can kind of feel like, oh, okay, I can see myself in that story. That's a real kid, and this happens to other kids. And so it's more relatable.
I love that. I love that he helped you write it, and that it's kind of told from his voice. I think that's one thing at Bark that we try to do is like, how can we speak to kids in their language and, help them feel more comfortable about the things that they might not otherwise want to talk about.
Exactly.
So, you've written, I've got another one down here, body safety for young children, empowering caring adults. So this is for the parents.
Yes.
Okay.
So I wrote this book and it sold, I think, something like over 250,000 copies,
Wow.
close to 300,000.
That's amazing.
But, I wrote it for children, and obviously this is a book that parents would read with their kids. But then I thought, well, someone might assume that I'm saying that child sexual abuse is the responsibility of the kid to protect, and that's not what I'm saying. So
Right.
I decided I really needed to write something for parents. So that is basically like, the book, What to Expect When You're Expecting.
Right.
It's like that, but for preventing child sexual abuse. So it's for parents and teachers, and it's full of our background story. It has resources of other books that I recommend because, my book isn't perfect for everybody.
Right.
And then websites. It has lesson plans, scripts, talks about like how to identify grooming and red flags. And it's very comprehensive. What's neat about it is I interviewed survivors to really give it an extra punch. So I learned so much while I was writing the book.
Wow. Yeah, I love that you included that survivor's story.
Yeah, and I think the most important takeaway from, or actually there's so many great takeaways from that, but I interviewed a survivor who was being abused when he was about 5 or 6 years old. And his kindergarten or first grade teacher kept noticing, he was misbehaving. He used to be the quiet kid. He used to follow the rules. He was very quiet. And, all of a sudden, basically overnight, his behavior changed and he became aggressive and violent. And she just kept sending him to the office, getting him a suspension, all of these things. But not once in like 3 years of this behavior did anybody ever ask him, "Are you okay? Is something going on?" Nobody asked him. And he said to me, if somebody would have asked me, I would have told.
Right.
So, yeah.
It's you have to think about how scary it must be as a kid to be in that position. And, they probably think I'm going to get in trouble for this. And so they oftentimes don't say anything. And I think that, part of probably what you're teaching is that, you have to speak up and you have to be confident knowing that if you go to a trusted adult with this information, they're going to help you how they can.
Yeah, exactly. And I think for kids, telling is one of the hardest things to do because a lot of kids don't even know that this is wrong, that adults shouldn't be doing these types of things to them, or that other kids shouldn't be doing these types of things. So there's that, just like the lack of awareness that this is not okay. But then in that book and in the research, you find that parents, step-parents, anybody that's actively, molesting a child, they use these manipulation techniques to keep them quiet. And they're not just like, if you tell, you're going to be in trouble. They can be extreme, like, if you tell, I'm going to kill somebody, or if you tell, I'm going to, get rid of your cat. Like, very violent, aggressive threats are also things that happen. So children are literally terrified because they're trying to protect another family member or not break up the family, or, it's a lot for a little 7 or 8 year old to have on their shoulders.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Gosh, I can't
Yeah.
imagine. You obviously talk a lot about body safety with parents and kids. What's something that parents might be surprised to learn when you're speaking with them?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think when I talk to parents, most of them are surprised to learn, even still to this day, that most of this abuse happens within the circles of the people that we know, love, and trust. But most parents are shocked when I say that the statistics for child-to-child sexual abuse, which is called COCSA, that statistic has jumped from, it used to be accounting for 40% of all child sexual abuse, but now it's up to 68% of reported child sexual abuse.
Wow.
And when I say that, everybody's like, whoa, maybe we better not have that sleepover. Maybe we better not do that play date yet.
Wow.
And that statistic is jumping, I think, for a variety of reasons. It depends like what you look at and who you talk to. But one of them is the access to pornography and the access to social media and the phones, right? And I guess, like the average age a kid sees pornography now is like 10 or 11. So a lot of times young children will repeat the things that they see without any harm or, ill intent. They're just repeating something, right? So that happens. But yeah, it's a shocking statistic. On the positive side of that statistic is that may be jumping because we are educating kids and they are reporting more. So it's hard to tease it out, but yeah.
Yeah, that's we did a documentary, Childhood 2.0, and one of the things that I think it's when a group of girls are being interviewed, they're talking about like hookups happening and what these expectations that these boys have of like what it should be like, and they just think it's totally normal. And the girls are also like, I just kind of like expect them to think that that's normal. And so for both, boys and girls to feel like this is just how it happens, and it's not, it's crazy. I have a friend who has little ones, and I will never forget when she texted me one day, and she's, part of, us being friends is she's learning a lot about what I do. But she's having a lot of conversations with other moms in her, in the school. And I'll never forget when she texted me like, did you know that they're watching porn at school at like in the 6th grade? And I'm like, it is a sad reality that, that's what kids are doing these days. And the effects, I don't think people really understand necessarily.
I agree 100% with that. I mean, I talk with a lot of parents too. So I have, a kindergarten class, and they all have siblings. And then I work with parents, consulting and things like that, and do workshops. And very often they don't understand that their kids can access all this horrible content even when they're monitoring their phones, even when they're, like on top of it. There's ways to sneak around it. I was actually working with a parent whose daughter, who was 7 years old, was on Roblox and had this game going with this friend who was 10, and months of going on. They were doing crafts and they were, sharing cute pictures of kittens. And then this led into like a request for an inappropriate picture. And this poor little girl was, completely traumatized. She saw something that she didn't need to. Can you imagine? I mean, I can't even imagine being like a 7-year-old and seeing some of the things that these 7 and 8-year-olds get in their inbox or in their message. It's horrifying.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that's why, what BARC does and what all body safety educators do is so important, because literally where we are right now, it's changing our children's brains. It's creating trauma. They're going to be living a whole different life, and their brain is going to develop in a whole different way. And the outcomes are just going to be nothing like our childhood. I mean, I feel lucky I wasn't raised in this time, but we do all have to do something. We have to take action.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's, it's hard too. Parents are navigating this, and it's the first time they've had to do it too.
Yeah.
So it's a whole different ballgame for parents and kids alike. You have, these online safety classes that you offer. What can people expect to learn from those courses? Like, what are the takeaways?
Sure. So I teach a class called Body Boss Boot Camp. That's a mouthful. That's for kids, ages basically like 4 to 8. And they would sign up with their parents, and the parent would sit behind them. And then I basically take apart the I Said No book section by section, but I'm like making it light, making it fun. And I'm putting on my Kim teacher hat where I'm like, hey, let's sing a song. I make it light, I make it fun. We dance, we sing, but then we get to the important lesson. Maybe, just making it a little less serious and making it a little less scary so that the kids engage. And then parents are like, oh, okay, it's really not that hard to teach our kids the correct body terms. Look at that video. We're already done. Do you know the names of the parts? Great. And
Right.
why do we need to know them? In case something happens. Boom, that's it. Move on, right? So you don't have to make it this big, scary ordeal. That's what the classes do. It's 8 topics, 8 minutes, 8-minute chunks, because attention span,
Yep.
not that big. And then there's like little homework assignments for the kids to do. And then there's resources for the parents as well. So that's the kid class. And then I have a free class that goes with the new book. So if you order a copy of the book, it's just like a gentle, light introduction to body safety so that everybody can feel comfortable about it. Like why we have to talk about it, why it's based really, like the beginnings of it are based in teaching our kids emotional IQ information. Like, are they able to identify their feelings? Are they able to express themselves? Can they identify when they're in danger, when they're uncomfortable? And what do we do about that? Like the basics aren't really about, anything other than being full of that type of knowledge and using it. So it's not a scary thing when you start early and you just cover it often and you just develop trust with your kids. And then it's just like so much easier.
Yeah. I think that it's a topic that, you think like, you hear someone say, like, you really need to talk to your kid about porn sooner than you might think. And it's like that has to frighten people.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think thinking about it in a different lens where it's like, nope, just start with the basics and like build on it.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
make it more of a, these are just the conversations we're having.
Exactly. There's even a book for that. Like there's a book for everything now. So there's the good pictures, bad pictures.
Yep.
I mean, if you're worried about that, which everyone should be, like you might as well read that book when your child is, 5 or 6 and talk about it, because it's better for them to ask you the questions than it is for them to go Google, like, what is porn? Right? Because imagine
the search.
So, like, we have to be the search. We have to be filling in all of those questions and having those conversations.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I know you have your own podcast, the Mom Unity podcast, which I love that name so much. Can you tell us a little bit more about it? What can listeners expect when they're tuning in?
Well, we just started it, and it's only on YouTube right now. So it is me and my best friend, body safety educator and survivor, Diane Tarantini. She wrote a book called The Brave Knight. Her book is about grooming, and she specializes in educating parents on sibling sexual abuse. So we talk, and that is a very common form of abuse that nobody talks about even now. So we talk about just like little bite-sized pieces of prevention. So we might have an episode about, I think we did one about sextortion and how there are 3 types and what parents need to know. But it's like 10 minutes long, powerful tips, and that's it. We're building it. So.
Right. That's awesome.
It's something you can listen to when you're like in the carpool lane or you're on your way to work. And it's not overwhelming. And Diane, if you go look her up, I think her social media is writing Diane. Like she's just a hoot and she's really fun to listen to and talk with, and she will just lay it out there. And she's also written a memoir called Everyone Was Silent, which is excellent. Really, really good book too.
I love that title. I'm intrigued.
Oh, you got to go get it. It's great. It reads like it should be a movie, actually, because I was like, oh, like it's a cliffhanger, and I'm not going to tell you why, but it's a great book.
Okay, so, good to know. Yeah. Adding it to my list.
I have a lot of books on my list. I'm like a book maniac. So
I love it. So you mentioned that this is a new version of the book. So can you tell us kind of what's new about it and why? It's got the Mom's Choice Award, which is awesome. So congrats on that.
It's basically the book that I always wanted to create, but I couldn't with the constraints of the other publisher. So we've kind of revamped it. So the most important thing that's different is the definition of safe adults. So I used to have in the old edition that safe adults are people who make you feel safe. They can come in an emergency. And then I gave a list of names and I said mom, dad, auntie, the policeman. But just because somebody has a title like a fireman, sure, probably 90% of firemen are safe adults or police officers. But when we add a label to that, it just makes it inaccurate. So the new adult safe adult definition is basically anybody who would come in an emergency, makes you feel safe and comfortable, doesn't ask you to keep secrets, doesn't break your body safety rules, and is somebody who you can talk to about the really tough stuff.
Love it.
So it's just clarified. That way there's no misinterpreting, anything.
Right.
Because, there's so many stories in the news, but, we think about safe adults as teachers, right? I've always thought safe adults are teachers or counselors. And in the town I grew up in last year, there was a case of a female counselor who was married with kids, and she was found having a whole relationship with a 12-year-old boy, a sexual relationship with texts and with all sorts of gory details I won't go into. But so we can't assume that any one type of person is a safe adult.
Right.
And then also, because of a few of the cases that I've been working on with parents, I felt like I really had to add the online safety piece. So we have a very kid-friendly illustration that shows them what it looks like to be talking to, you think a 13-year-old girl, but it might be like this creepy person in the basement, you know. So we do a little bit of that. We talked about video game safety. We talked about texting. So it's just 4 new scenarios that are really critical to the time that these kids live in. I'm not saying I want 8-year-olds to have a phone, but a lot of them already do. So that's kind of why I want that in there. And also now, because it's in there, parents will read that and go, oh no, we're not getting that phone. Look,
helps them realize that the longer they can delay, the better.
Yes, absolutely. I wish I could have delayed with my kids. So I'm old and I have like a 28-year-old, a 26-year-old, and a 21-year-old. So my 26-year-old got a phone at age 12, the middle child. That was probably the biggest mistake of my life, because he got involved in Instagram and streaming things, and just the algorithm feeding him things about depression and suicide and all this stuff. And just, it has messed him up.
Yep.
It really does affect how children develop. And I think we're only now knowing how truly dangerous it is. So.
Yeah. And I think the good thing is there's a lot, it seems to be, I think there's some credit due to Jonathan Haidt and the Anxious Generation 100%. Movement, just kind of waking parents up to realizing like, oh, this is something we need to be concerned about and aware of and educated about. It's an entirely different world. Even I always joke, I grew up with like the Tumblr era. So like that was like the first real big social platform that I was on, and even that was miserable for me. So I can't imagine, as a 32-year-old adult, there's things that I'm like, I can't look at this anymore. Like I've got to turn the phone off. I recently set screen time limits on myself because I was like, I just can't consume this anymore. Yeah. So thinking about kids who aren't really able to recognize that, it's a totally different world that they're growing up in.
It really is. And when parents don't know that, there are all of these open doors for predators. And I guess, if we break it down and try to get upstream of that, that's really the only way to do it. So, talking about body safety education to kids and teaching parents, how grooming happens and what it looks like in person, that's one thing. But we also have to do that before we even consider having any kind of devices.
Right.
I have kindergartners who are like, yeah, we watch YouTube. And I'm like, oh no. I have an iPad. And so my poor parents that are in my class, every week, and this is something any teacher watching could do. Every week I send them a little bit of a body safety tip or an article about, why video games aren't great right now. And just keeping parents posted on what's going on is really helpful to do for them, because we've got a lot of parents that are, working hard, don't have time to dig into all this research or explore it. But if they know, then they're going to make a change. If they know, they will take action. And so that's one thing. As a teacher. So Erin Marin is, you might have heard of Erin's Law. She's a advocate and survivor who has passed laws in 38 states
Wow.
requiring schools, public schools, pre-K to 12, to teach body safety education to the kids, to the teachers, and the parents. It's like this
Wow.
comprehensive curriculum. And I Said No was just added to that curriculum
That's
as a
awesome.
resource. And it's interesting, though, because when I go teach at teacher conferences, many teachers don't know what Aaron's Law is. So there is still a bit of a disconnect with even the teachers getting the right information.
Right.
But when they do, it's very easy to learn this curriculum. There's a free curriculum now for anybody to download. So it's something that I think it's kind of like the missing piece. When we have parents and teachers working together with kids, it creates like a safety circle where, there's just more protection for everybody.
Yeah, that's great. I love that.
And a lot of kids won't ever hear about body safety at home. So if they have, body safety assembly, or if they have somebody coming to read the I Said No book, or if they're even doing a little mini lesson about, well, who are your green flag people? Who are your safe adults? Who are your red flag people? And, just simple things like that. Really just little micro lessons over a period of time can completely reduce the risk.
What else can I ask that we haven't talked about?
One thing that I am talking about at the NACCE conference this fall, which is the National Association for the Education of Young Children, I'm talking about how parents shouldn't post pictures of their children's faces online, but I'm also teaching that to the teachers because it is one of my biggest pet peeves about preschools and daycares. And, we have people posting pictures of kids in the sprinkler in their bathing suits and hashtagging it with like bathing suits and swimming party and preschool. And it's just a doorway for somebody to get control of your child's image. So at our school, we have everybody sign this form that says, it's okay for them to use their photo on the social media and in the marketing and all of that. And for me, it's a no-go. So I'm just like, don't sign the form.
Yeah.
like it's not okay for us to use your child's image to market our school. And then I start to tell the teachers that I'm talking to about the risks and what can happen with, just someone screenshotting your child's face and using, the generative AI to create a CSAM video. And then next thing you know, your child's face and likeness and everything is out there. And then there's a disturbing, disgusting video being shared all over the place. Yep. Not just on the dark web, though. It's so interesting how this whole topic of child sexual abuse material is just, out of control. That's just something it keeps me up at night. Yeah.
It's, it's rampant. And I don't think people understand the harms that can be done just by simply, you think it's harmless to just share a photo with their face, but because of things like AI, the things that can be done with a simple face image is crazy.
It really is. And it just made me think of something else that I think is really important to talk about. I went and marched in New York City this year with the HEAT Initiative.
Awesome.
And we did this, protest against Meta. And my friend Rosalia Rivera from Consent Parenting invited me to go with her, and I went. And I met 32 parents who had lost their kids to these child sextortion schemes. Yeah. And, I've heard about this stuff and I've read the cases, and it's horrible and so sad. But when you go and you are with 32 people who are collectively mourning their children and it could have been prevented, and there are people putting profits over lives, it's just, it really made me so angry and just more passionate about really digging into this topic and being more out there and talking more about it. But I have never felt collective grief before. Oof. It was like, it just was, I couldn't even breathe. It was so incredible. So very brave parents.
Yes.
And an incredible organization.
Yes, we love the HEAT Initiative very much. It is scary, to think that the people that we're up against in these sorts of situations are these big corporations
Yeah.
like Snap Inc. and Meta, and they're all parents too.
Yeah.
And there's actually somewhat recently a video interview. I think it was I want to say it was Evan Spiegel's wife on a podcast saying that they don't let their kids use social media, but they let their kids use Snapchat.
I saw that.
And it's just like, and it coincided with this campaign that they ran that was like less social media, more Snapchat,
Yeah.
which is just nuts because
Yeah.
it's a social media platform.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter which way you slice and dice it. That's what it is. But those are the people we're up against. And for them to know that they're sitting, one thing that I've seen a lot of and dug a lot into is like we're very close to Sammy's Law, what we're trying to help pass, where you've got a courtroom filled with parents holding up photos of their lost children's faces in front of all of these executives, and they just are
Nothing.
emotionless, and it makes it really hard to believe that people like that exist.
It
and
really does.
Yeah.
And that they know that their algorithm feeds terrible behaviors and terrible content, and they know, and they've done studies that it's harmful to children, and they hide it.
Yep.
They put it down. They fire people.
Yep.
It's like it's incredible.
It's
And then we're on our phones, and it's so like
yes, yeah, it's this constant I think parents, adults, caregivers, whoever it might be, just as much need to be conscious of their phone use and their tech use.
Yeah.
As we're telling kids, like, get off your phone.
I know, it's so true. I was thinking about this last night because, back when I had my first child, it was 1997. I mean, we had like remote phones, the big one, but and so all I did for the first 3 years of her life was like Google at her and, take pictures with an old-fashioned camera and read her books and teach her songs and go on walks and go on the jungle gym and all of these things that I did for like 24 hours a day. And now parents don't really do that as much anymore. I wonder if there's a study about what does a 0 to 3-year-old's brain look like now versus then, because I bet it's very different.
Oh, I'm sure.
Things that you learn between 0 and 8, even just like language development, are parents talking to their kids as much as they were anymore? I doubt it.
Yeah.
I mean, so I try to check myself too, because even though I have adult children, I'm working on my phone and posting things. And my son, Alex, who's 21, he said, Mom, there's a app that will make you stop staying on your phone and you can limit it to 3 hours. And I'm like, oh, that's a really good idea. And he does that. He put that on his phone because he cannot focus on college and all of his assignments and his fraternity and his girlfriend and all these things. He can't focus when he's got it on all the time. It just doesn't happen.
It is interesting now to see kind of this younger generation who they were really, truly raised on the devices, now being so much more mindful of their own use. I feel like Gen Z, and I guess, what is it, Gen Alpha is what's after them, sometimes get a lot of flack for being, like, we don't know what they're saying half the time because of the slang, but they do. There is a large population of them who are very aware of their tech use, and I think, some of us could probably stand to learn a thing, learn a thing or two from them.
And I think one of the things that sort of kept my son Alex from being obsessed with the phone as a younger teen was that he was super athletic and was on baseball teams and travel ball and basketball. So he really had also no time. Which I think we're letting that go. And that's so important too for like health and wellness and mental health.
Yes.
So
definitely. What else? Is there anything else that we haven't yet discussed today that, people absolutely need to hear?
They absolutely need to hear that. And it's researched and proven that with just a little bit of prevention, education, 95% of child sexual abuse can be prevented. So if you start talking early about it and you introduce it in a calm way, you can avoid the, freaking your kids out moments that happen when you push it back and assume somebody else will do it. So you start talking about it, you introduce it gently, you use books, you have conversations, maybe you take a class as a parent, and learn about the risks and reduce them. And I can tell you for sure, predators are looking for targets that have children, families that have cracks, like that they can get through a crack, So like you've got to firm up all those cracks. You've got to talk about emotional awareness. You've got to talk about feelings. You've got to develop this open, honest relationship with your kids so that if, God forbid, they get into any situation, they are going to say, oh my God, I've got to tell mom or dad or whoever, instead of like, oh, mom's going to kill me.
Right.
That story, I sat down at that HEAT initiative. I sat down at a table with a family who had just lost their son like 6 months ago. And the dad said to me, and I think he was like Irish or Scottish or something. He had a great accent. And he said, if that little bugger would have just told me he showed his willy to somebody, I would have just laughed it off and we could have fixed the problem. He didn't have to end it, and that's kids, when we have these lifelong conversations, then kids are more apt to tell us when they have a problem. So
I love that. That's great. Well, thank you again for joining us.
Thank you.
And, hopefully more I Said No books to be sold and read by parents and kids. And we're very happy to have had you.
I'm so happy to have been able to come. And if people are looking for me,
yes, please.
I'm on Instagram at Tough Topics Mom. And then my website is toughtopicsmom.com.
Love it. We'll make sure to add it.
Perfect.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.